It's the 6th year since I was taken back home, and my family is utterly disappointed in me. My parents think I'm not presentable, unlike the adopted daughter, who is elegant and dazzling. My brothers openly despise me, their biological sister, fearing I might bully their other sister out of jealousy. As for the one who took my place for so many years, she accused me of plagiarizing her design. The whole family decided to send me abroad, out of sight, out of mind. They've given up on me, and I'm ready to give up on them too. When I saw my design, which I intended to submit for a competition, posted as Clara's artwork on social media the day before, I felt exhausted. The internet's frenzy spread quickly, possibly fueled by hidden forces. Many netizens are now aware that a newcomer designer, Linda, was accused of plagiarizing the heiress's work. I opened Clara's social media account, and there it was. The night before my submission, she posted it. Her caption read, "Got some inspiration lately. Thinking of starting a fashion brand. What do you guys think of these designs?" Clara loves sharing on social media. Her casual daily posts on her wealthy lifestyle attract a huge following, with fans hailing her as the true heiress. In some ways, they're not wrong. Clara grew up with all the luxury. If you rewind time, those designs were posted just the night before I submitted mine. Back then, her comments were full of praise, asking when they could see the finished products. Now they're all empathizing with Clara. Is that thief really thinking Clara is some nobody? She has hundreds of thousands of followers, how dare she? How can someone be so different from others? Stop trying to ride on her fame. That Linda isn't even worthy to compare to a single finger of our Clara. Does that thief have an account? I can't swallow this anger. The officials had already returned my submission, clearly stating that plagiarized works would not be considered. If I hadn't drawn it with my own hands, I'd believe I was a thief too. Linda, haven't you embarrassed us enough? Felix scolded furiously as he entered. You've been targeting Clara in every way, and now you've straight up stolen her designs. How can anyone like you with such poor character be in our family? Felix is supposedly my second brother by blood. He is closest to Linda and has stood by his sister since I returned. Worried my return would embarrass Clara, afraid she would feel burdened, Clara gently blocked Felix, speaking softly. Second brother, let it go. Maybe Linda just wasn't thinking straight. If I'd known she was submitting the design, I wouldn't have posted it online. Now she's being scolded by so many people. Though she says that, she hasn't deleted the post even after all this uproar. Clara's eyes turned red as she spoke, then she clutched her chest, gasping for breath. Felix hurriedly helped her sit down, then turned back to glare at me. Clara's still thinking of you despite you knowing her health isn't good. Are you trying to upset her on purpose? Why is your heart so malicious? I unemotionally watched this drama of sibling love. How could I not know Clara's health is poor? She was born with a severe heart condition. That's why she had taken my identity for years. Her biological parents switched us at the hospital over 20 years ago, knowing the child of the family giving birth on the same day would have a better life. The events of over 2 decades ago are hard to trace back. I still don't know how Clara's birth parents and my adoptive parents managed to switch the babies at the hospital. But I do know I had an aunt who once worked as a nurse at a hospital, though she resigned and married far away, and I haven't seen her since. My adoptive mom had poor health. I learned to take care of her from a young age. She often complained, if it wasn't for having you, I wouldn't have these health problems, and you ended up being a girl too. At the time, I didn't know I wasn't their biological child, so I tried even harder to care for her, do housework, and study hard to get into a good college. My adoptive father wanted a son, and since his wife couldn't have another child, he kept a woman outside the family and urged me to work after high school to support my younger brother. In a twist of fate, my adoptive father died in a car accident, and the driver paid compensation. His mistress came seeking a share, and my sick adoptive mom fought back fiercely, causing the woman to abort her child and leave. My adoptive mother's health and spirit declined further, and though I took her to the hospital and paused my studies to care for her, she passed away after 6 months. On the night she passed, she couldn't speak. As I sat by her bedside, she moved her lips and tears welled in her eyes. Only later did I understand that her mouth formed the words "I'm sorry." At 16, I became an orphan, using the money I inherited to continue my education. At 17, a well-to-do couple found me, claiming they were my real parents. A DNA test was the undeniable proof. My previous years of poverty and gender bias suddenly seemed like a bad joke. Especially when I entered their home and saw Clara, protected behind my two brothers. My mother said, "Clara's biological parents have passed away, and she's lived with us for many years. We can't pursue anything. She is innocent too. From now on you will be like sisters." My father said, "Now that you're back, let's change your last name back. But let's not spread this news. You'll be known as the adopted daughter to outsiders." Initially, they felt guilty towards me. But over time, the difference between me and the daughter they cherished from youth became apparent. Moreover, with Clara's congenital heart condition, they were used to prioritizing her. Nolan returned too, dressed sharply and exuding a cold aura. He's my older brother again by blood. Someone followed behind him, Ken, Clara's fiancé. Ken hurried over to Clara. "Clara, what's wrong?" Felix immediately complained. "Big brother, Linda refuses to apologize and even upset Clara like this." Ken already disliked me under his fiancé's influence, and after hearing what was said, he looked at me with an icy gaze. "What's going on with your family? Letting an adopted daughter bully your own child? Are you trying to be so charitable that you let outsiders walk all over you?" Nolan shot me a glance and said directly, "Linda, apologize." Several pairs of eyes were on me. I met Nolan's gaze and calmly said, "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not apologizing." "Oh, you're not going to admit it, huh?" Felix suddenly stood up and said, "You've always been like this, jealous of Clara for everything. Haven't Mom and Dad given you enough? You want to take everything from her. If you didn't steal her designs, then are you saying she stole from you?" This kind of argument felt pointless. 6 years of this and I'd had enough. I softly asked, "What if I have a recording of the drawing process?" Clara's eyes flickered with panic at my words. But she quickly started crying. "Linda, how could you even steal that from me?" She seemed so pitifully wronged. My words didn't seem to matter anymore. Nolan said, "Since you're so stubborn, I've discussed with Mom and Dad. We're sending you abroad for a few years to study and reflect." The implication was clear. The whole family was ready to give up on me, the daughter and sister who wasn't up to their standards. Nolan, at 28, was the favored eldest son, and anything he said naturally had the approval of our parents. Our parents had been on a business trip abroad, and were presumably on their way home now. Ken, as the fiancé, still wanted to defend Clara. Coldly, he looked at me. "Linda, I don't care what you're thinking, but I'm only going to support Clara. Whatever you do won't get my attention." I was a bit speechless. I have no idea how the rumor started that I had feelings for Ken. Perhaps it was from 3 years ago when those two were dating. On Clara's birthday, Ken spent a lot of money to put on a blue firework display, which was stunning and romantic. I watched for a bit too long, surrounded by people congratulating Clara, including my two brothers. No one seemed to realize it was my birthday too. Because back then, my biological father said to avoid outside speculation, I'd celebrate my birthday separately. But I never picked a date and no one cared. Each year, I watched Clara being the center of attention all alone. That year, I was just a little envious of Clara. Envious of having family and friends who adored her regardless of blood ties. Somehow, that turned into people saying I was into Ken. Sure, he's a perfect guy in all aspects, but what's that got to do with me? I understood my mental state wasn't quite right, so I didn't want to talk then. Maybe that silence seemed like agreement. My parents came back the next day. But by then, somehow, my entry photo for a competition had been spread online. The online abuse was overwhelming, with some even photoshopping it as an obituary photo. Dad was furious. He pointed at me and said, Linda, what grudge do you have against this family that you insist on driving your sister away to be satisfied? A few seconds before, Clara was tearfully pleading for me, saying she was willing to move out for family harmony. My mom comforted her frail daughter, looking at me with disappointment. How could I have given birth to someone like you? Apologize to your sister now. Nolan and Felix stood by waiting for me to admit my mistakes. Strangely, a few days earlier, such treatment would have saddened me. But now I felt oddly calm. They're my relatives by blood, but they don't have to be. I've been having mental health issues for a while. I've relied on sleeping pills for sleep these past 2 years, unable to talk to these so-called family members. They're displeased with me for not being poised and graceful, unable to bring them face at social events. I'm introverted, liking quietness, being brought back too late, and I'm not as talented as Clara. Just a hobby in painting. After coming home, they hired a tutor for me and I slowly learned. The teacher often praised my talent, saying I'd be even better had I started early. But Clara also paints, so they never believed those design drafts were mine. Clara is exceptional, and they think she wouldn't do such things. I haven't done anything wrong. After a long pause, I still calmly said it. Then my biological father got really angry and slapped me. My face turned to the side, with fiery pain spreading from my cheek to my heart, but I always felt a detached, floating sensation. Dad shouted angrily, "Get out of this house!" And I did leave. I heard about the school they arranged for me abroad, not a particularly prestigious one. They probably thought my abilities didn't warrant anything better. After leaving the house, I bought a plane ticket and embarked on a journey to a foreign land. I just packed my bags simply. As I left, Clara stood on the second-floor balcony, watching me with a satisfied expression, no longer looking weak. Somehow in this house a war with Clara without smoke began. She wore a different face in front of me and others. At first I didn't tie events to her and wanted to get along. After all, both of us as babies had no control over our lives. But after I returned, she kept falling ill more frequently. Sometimes it's true and sometimes it's fake. Often I knew she was acting, but my family believed her, making it seem like I was the intolerant one. In 6 years, any guilt my blood relatives felt for me had all but vanished. I'd become someone with average skills and an unpleasant, toxic personality. Felix once carelessly said, "If I'd have known this, I wouldn't have let Mom and Dad bring you back." That statement was so jarring, and it was the first time I realized I was sick after Felix said it. The therapist suggested making some friends, but I didn't have any close friends. After 4 years of college, classmates went their separate ways. Friends from those times were busy with their careers. I wasn't important to them in that way. I wanted to leave this house. In fact, I'd secretly started preparing to study abroad last year. I had a school I wanted to go to, and I figured out how to apply on my own. They didn't know. No one thought I could get accepted. I didn't think so either before. When I was learning to draw, Felix came over and tried to convince me to give up. "Linda, you're not like Clara. She's been drawing since she was a kid. No matter how much you learn, you can't reach her level." I don't know who told him I was just following Clara, but I've loved drawing since I was a kid. My adoptive parents thought it was useless and wouldn't let me learn. So I secretly learned techniques from bloggers online and practiced in my spare time. One time I had a fever and bombed an end-of-term exam. My adoptive father thought I was too into drawing, kicked my door open, and ripped up all my drawings hidden under the bed. He didn't care much about my studies since he always said girls don't need an education. He just got drunk that day and needed a reason to get angry. After about a 10-hour flight, I landed in London, breathing in foreign air with just a 24-inch suitcase beside me. Even though it was a strange place full of unfamiliar faces, oddly my heart relaxed and I felt a bit excited at the wrong time. Finding a place was my top priority the moment I landed. I had already contacted a few landlords online using my English, which wasn't all that fluent but good enough. I finally chose a small house with a garden. It was the most expensive of the places I saw, but the landlord needed quick cash and lowered the price a lot. It wasn't too far from my future school, so I lucked out. I loved it so much that I splurged to rent it. After being brought home, my biological parents once deposited a big sum into my account to make up for things. Over the years, I barely touched that money. I know compared to the other 3 kids I got very little, but to me it was a lot. Clara once bragged privately that it was just her allowance for a few months. The money spent annually on her medical bills was astronomical. After Nolan and Felix started working, they would sometimes secretly give her pocket money or gifts. I received gifts from Nolan once, stuff he brought back from a trip. I was so happy, but later found out that the rare luxury bag was something Clara had passed on. I've always been used to being poor with a poor mindset. Even after learning my parents are wealthy, I still cautiously avoid spending recklessly. Now, with tuition, rent, and living expenses along with my savings, I should have enough. I can also earn money from freelance writing online. Away from home and that oppressive atmosphere, I suddenly felt life become easier again. Moving into the new place, I hadn't bought anything yet and many corners needed tidying up, but I felt life would get better. Life is a wilderness. That online proverb came to mind. With over 2 months before school started, I originally planned to tell my family, but they seemed eager for me to leave, so I thought it was okay this way. On the first day I moved in, I threw out my old SIM card. It was tied to tons of apps, but I still tossed it. Sometimes you have to break things down to build them up. I wanted to say goodbye to the past. Luckily, I arrived early and had enough time to settle into my new home. The second day after moving in, I met a Chinese neighbor. She was a fashionable woman in her 50s, with vibrant hair that made me a bit jealous. If not for her mentioning her age, I wouldn't have guessed she was nearing 60. I loved her garden, full of colorful flowers and plants. "Hey little girl, are you Chinese?" Wendy greeted me warmly. I felt rude, only nodding at her friendly approach. "Are you a student?" I nodded again, not really making a great first impression on my neighbor. That evening, Wendy and her husband John rang my doorbell, bringing over a pot of blooming hydrangeas. "We thought you might like flowers, so here's a housewarming gift." The flowers were stunning with lots of blooms, and I finally managed to thank you. Wendy was surprised, saying, "Oh my, you can speak." I thought, initially believing I was mute and feeling sorry for me. She quickly added, "It's okay, young folks being shy is normal." That night, I stared at the hydrangeas for a long time, taking dozens of photos. Wendy and John were experts in gardening. As I got to know Wendy better while setting up my place, I found out they were financially free, living here leisurely. Wendy was always lively, inviting me over, introducing great places to buy furniture, teaching me about London, how to set up my garden, even sharing plants from theirs. John was quieter but friendly, cooking in the kitchen with Wendy helping out. His food was great. "Linda, thank goodness you're around. We often cook too much and can't finish it." They called me Linda soon after meeting, something my family never did in 6 years. Abroad, I found precious kindness. I knew they didn't invite me because of extra food, but rather a subtle kindness to a young girl alone overseas. The couple had everything, both emotionally and financially. I wasn't sure how to repay them, but they seemed to read my mind. Wendy said, "Linda, having a fellow Chinese neighbor is rare. And you're so delightful we couldn't help but meddle a bit, so don't worry about it." After my place was set up, I felt like my heart settled down too. I'm still not sleeping well and still rely on medication to help out. There's about a month until school starts, so I need to find something to do. I started painting again. I thought about it and bought some basic equipment, then signed up for an account on an international social media platform. I began live streaming my painting sessions. Sometimes I use a digital drawing tablet, and sometimes a wooden easel. But when I use the wooden easel, my hands end up on camera. It's just my hands, nothing special. The doctor suggested I make more friends, but aside from an older neighbor, I don't have any real-life friends. In the international student community, there are a lot of group chats that I joined, but so far I've only made online friends. I figured online friendships could work too. Painting is my only skill. First, I just painted. If a couple of viewers came into my live stream and commented that it was dry, I'd put on music and continue painting quietly. After finishing each piece, I'd upload a recording of the completed work to my profile. Surprisingly, people actually checked it out. My subjects are pretty varied: sketches, traditional Chinese paintings, watercolors, fashion design sketches, and even comic book characters and scenes. Some techniques I'm not very skilled in, I mostly just figure things out intuitively. I didn't expect anyone to actually watch me paint. More and more people started joining my live streams. Some were amazed, and others asked questions. But I've never spoken out loud to answer them. I respond in the comments using Google Translate for English. Please forgive my limited English skills. School started. Wendy and John were surprisingly eager to drop me off. They said they hadn't felt this kind of joy since their only son graduated. I didn't quite get it, but I respected it. Starting school just meant I had to go out on weekdays. I still came home every night and sometimes even went over to their place for dinner. Not all my classmates were blonde with blue eyes, but there were definitely fewer Asian students. The only other Asian student was Korean. When we talked, we were both a bit disappointed. International students like to stick together. Not for any reason other than it feels safe being with others from home. But not all compatriots are trustworthy. Every now and then, someone in the international student group chat would lament being scammed, and sometimes there'd be drama to watch. When I didn't have class, I'd stream my painting at home. For some reason, more people kept watching, and eventually some even sent donations. I turned off the donation feature. Earning money from commissions was enough. Life carried on, quietly, with a few little hassles. Winter arrived in London. One morning I was heading out for class and saw a tall figure standing at my neighbor's door, ringing the bell without any response. When I opened my door, the person turned around. That was when I first met David. Wendy and John had talked about their only son, David. I didn't recognize him since Wendy had a photo in her living room from when David was 1 year old. She said it was her favorite stage because he was the cutest then. The adorable kid in the photo looked nothing like the tall man in front of me. What I saw was a strikingly handsome Asian face with really nice eyes. And considering his body proportions, I suddenly thought he'd make a great figure model. With some preconceived notions, I instinctively thought he was a compatriot. "Hi, can I help you with something?" I asked. He simply stated he was visiting his parents, so I knew he was Wendy and John's son. Wendy and John went to Brighton to visit friends recently. "Didn't they tell you?" The handsome young man visibly hesitated, then thanked me after a moment. I was running late for class and didn't pay much attention to where he went after that. 2 days later, Wendy invited me over for hot pot, and David was at the table. That's when we officially met. I learned David was busy with the family business and rarely had free time, but he was visiting before his parents retired early to travel the world. "Linda, eat more meat, you're too skinny," Wendy said, serving me food. She also served David, but he politely declined with, "Mom, I can serve myself." So Wendy turned her attentions back to me. I quietly ate as David did the same because his dad was also serving him food. After dinner I headed home, and David was tasked with walking me back. He smiled, looking around my yard. I thought my parents bought the house next door too, with how similar the gardens look. The styles were similar, but Wendy and John's garden was noticeably tidier. David didn't leave right away, he moved in next door. Almost every morning, I saw him in the garden rearranging plants for his parents. Wendy said it was perfect timing because he had plenty of energy to burn. In early December, on a weekend evening, I planned to go shop for groceries. Wendy, not one to let her son idle, patted David's shoulder. "Linda, it's late, and it's not safe to go out alone. David has some free time. Let him drive you." I couldn't refuse, and David seemed more like he was hired to be there. He did as his mom asked. He drove me to the mall. We mostly stayed quiet, but occasionally, he'd ask about my school and studies like a long-lost relative. David also did some shopping, and when it came time to pay, he generously offered to cover my stuff too. I declined, grabbed my items back, and paid for my own things. He looked at me with a kind of helpless gaze. On the way home, there's this stretch that's pretty deserted. David was driving slow. Suddenly I said, "Stop for a sec." The car came to a gentle halt. I got out, walked back a bit, and saw a tiny kitten shaking in the streetlight, meowing its heart out. There was no sign of any other cats around. David got out too, stopped next to me, and quietly looked at the kitten that clearly hadn't opened its eyes yet. We both knew the deal. If we left it there, the kitten would probably die in the cold night. Not long after we got back in the car, it started to snow outside. In my arms, the dirty little kitten seemed to fall asleep in the warmth. It looked so grimy you couldn't tell its color. On that first snowy night in London, David and I found ourselves a kitty. Keeping a kitten alive is quite a challenge. The vet told us it was healthy. Once we cleaned it up, turns out it was a long-haired calico. But a kitten that hasn't opened its eyes needs to be fed regularly. I took it home and set alarms to get up and feed it. David was thinking about taking it to his place, but he wasn't living in London for the long haul. Plus, he's past the age where he'll get a pet on a whim, and then leave the responsibility to his parents. Since he was around London a bit, I left the kitten with him when I went to class. David said it was our joint find and he should help with it. Honestly, I was worried I couldn't keep it alive. I haven't really taken care of much successfully, not even myself, but it felt like luck was on my side. By the third day, the little kitten opened its eyes and its mews got stronger. Wendy joked that she thought we brought back a rat that night. I named it Snow because of the snowy night we found it. Caring for the cat meant David and I interacted more. First, we exchanged contact info, Then he started coming into my small cottage, sometimes not just for the cat, but to drop off things from his parents. Occasionally, I would stare at him, feeling like Wendy and John's genes blended perfectly in him. One day, while David was playing with the cat, he suddenly turned to me and asked, "Linda, why do you keep looking at me?" It was funny how he, like his parents, called me Linda. I admitted, "You look good. I want to invite you to be my model." Knowing my field, David's expression turned a bit amused. "Life model? Not nude." He let out a breath, visibly relieved. "Sure." I was a bit surprised. "Aren't you going to discuss payment first?" "Life modeling is tough." David said, "I can do it for free." He's not short on cash, I knew that. After thinking for a bit, I said, "Never mind then." I couldn't ask for someone's time without compensation. After some nudging, David accepted the fee. On a weekend, David came to my studio. As per my request, he took off his shirt, then slowly unbuckled his belt. With those fit muscles and his natural build, he was a perfect model fit. I started a live stream, focusing the camera only on the easel. Through the long painting process, I'd occasionally ask David to shift his pose or take a break. Our conversations got recorded in the stream. For the first time, the audience found out my nationality since we talked in Chinese. With the soothing music in the studio and an attractive model, it was quite a setting. When it came time to paint his face, I turned off the live stream. David noticed, chuckling, "How come you ended the stream?" I replied, "To protect the model's privacy." He laughed again, eyes crinkling into a smile. "They've seen the body but not the face?" I nodded. After all, David wasn't a professional life model. Once I finished the piece, I chose not to update it on my site, even though many were eager to see it. Close to Christmas, David headed back home. He gave me a Christmas gift early, a diamond bracelet. I hadn't prepared anything for him. I felt a bit dazed. "It's all right, you don't have to reciprocate," he said. David had suddenly stepped into my life and then quickly moved back into his own. When he left, it had been almost a month since we found Snow, now a fluffy ball of energy. I was still on good terms with my neighbors next door. During class, I'd leave Snow with Wendy, kind of like daycare. But David and I stayed in touch. He'd often check in on Snow's progress. I'd send him pictures and videos. Finally, I figured out how to show Wendy and John my gratitude. I proposed designing some clothes for them. Probably because I was a design student, they gladly gave me the chance to practice, so I took their measurements. While doing that, my kitty was meowing by my side. So I made it a little sweater too. It was simple, just took half a day. My life was calm but had little joys, except for the relentless group projects in grad school, which were a drag. Before the Chinese New Year, I completed the clothes design for Wendy and John. Wendy got a light aqua embroidered cheapao, while John received a black suit. His jacket cuffs were embroidered just like Wendy's dress. They seemed pleasantly surprised by my design skills. John praised it quite a bit. They treasured these gifts and decided to wear the outfits for New Year's Eve. Yes, I had the New Year's Eve dinner at their place. And just as we sat down, David rushed in looking travel-worn. He said he'd come to celebrate the new year together as a family. Upon learning the clothes his parents wore were made by me, he was silent for a moment, then asked, "Where's mine?" I hadn't considered he'd come back for the holidays, seeing how busy he seemed, assuming he'd have lots of social events like in the past. They probably just think I'm not presentable, which is why they don't bring me to many events. At dinner, I gave David a chicken drumstick and smiled at him, "Happy New Year's Eve." He looked at me for a couple of seconds, resignedly accepting my special treatment. After dinner, he came over to my place to see the cat. Snow ran towards the door with its fur all puffed up to greet us. It's grown a bit. The little guy that used to look like a tiny mouse can now cause chaos at home. Snow has more black markings now, but it's fluffy and super cute. David picked the cat up and gave it a gentle pet. I took out the measuring tools. "Want me to measure your sizes?" David seemed surprised for a second. "Didn't you say you wanted clothes?" Once he understood, David laughed and set the cat down on the floor, casually taking off his coat and sweater, and waited for me to proceed. David has a great build, I've seen it before. But now we were pretty close, and he's taller than me. I could feel his intentionally soft breath above my head. The cat meowed around our feet. "It might take a while to finish," I told him. "That's okay," David smiled. "Thanks for the trouble." He seemed in a good mood. David didn't stay in London very long. He went back home. He complained about his parents, who are young but eager to retire and enjoy life, leaving some toys for Snow before leaving. My studies aren't exactly relaxed, but with drawing and streaming in my downtime, as well as taking care of my cat and plants, life feels pretty fulfilling. Maybe because I'm no longer feeling suppressed. I no longer need sleeping pills to fall asleep. The clothes I designed for David weren't finished until late April, and I sent him a message. He turned up at the beginning of May. The suit I made for him was a bit flashy, but he's got the figure to pull it off. It looked great, not at all out of place. David said he liked my design. My dad says your design's pretty good, and he thinks highly of you. Why not learn from him? David suggested. I was a bit stunned. Do you not know my dad's name? He told me a name and suggested I look it up. It sounded familiar at first, and when I checked online, I found that John, the neighbor who loves gardening, is actually a somewhat famous fashion designer internationally and the founder of a popular brand. I always knew this family wasn't short on cash. They liked the clothes I made, not just for the design, but for the personal connection. Your designs suit the high-end market, David said. My dad probably knows people in that field. Learning from him is better than figuring it out by yourself. David had no qualms about promoting his own dad to help me out, not giving me a chance to refuse, and enthusiastically shared his father's skills, taking me next door. I had to reassess this middle-aged man watering his plants. John was willing to provide some help, like introducing me to his friends, and getting me an internship at a high-end fashion studio. He looked at David and said, "You're really trying to keep your dad busy." David replied, "Dad, it's your time to shine. Taking on a student won't be a problem." John told him to get back home. Wendy was delighted that we were getting closer. Considering my previous oversight, I asked David, "What did Wendy do before?" David responded, "She was a businesswoman." I have a feeling that being a businesswoman is just part of her story, but it doesn't seem too important. My life felt even more fulfilling. David's trips to London became more frequent. He said he missed the cat. My online following seemed to be growing, and my fan base was expanding. Being liked is a nice feeling, but the internet can turn on you in a snap. In the winter of my second year in London, Wendy and John moved away. They had travel plans, with their next stop in Switzerland. They gave me their keys, and said I could help tend their garden if I wanted. If the timing worked out, they'd come back for a visit. Even after Wendy and John moved away, David still came to London. With the cold weather, I stayed inside drawing, and Snow lay by my feet, now a full-grown cat. Did Wendy and John not tell you they moved? I poured David a hot cup of tea to warm up. They did, he said, watching as I drew new designs on my sketchpad. I should have asked why he was still in London, but I didn't. Some subtle changes seem to have quietly filled my life. I'm not sure exactly what. David cooked us dinner in the neighboring house, and invited me over. He's a great cook. Snow even came over from next door. We let cats roam freely here. I put a tracker on it so the little guy ventures out but always returns home. And other cats have visited my garden as well. David didn't leave immediately. He stayed, cooked meals, and invited me over, taking care of feeding the cat when I was busy. Then on an unremarkable day in November, David suddenly said, "Linda, happy birthday." In all the years my birthday had been forgotten, someone was finally celebrating it for me. David couldn't understand why I started to cry after he wished me a happy birthday. He seemed a bit lost, but instinctively reached to wipe away my tears, though he froze when he touched my cheek. After a moment, he firmly wiped away my tears. "Why the tears? Did I upset you, or did I remind you of something sad?" he asked. I wasn't sure how to explain, and finally, I just awkwardly replied, "I'm just very happy, thank you." He looked at me skeptically but stuck to his plan, bringing out a birthday cake he'd gotten for me from the fridge. "I wanted to bake you a cake myself, but I failed. So I bought this one," he said, a bit embarrassed. He turned off the lights, lit the candles, and invited me to sit down and make a wish. My mind was a bit of a blank, but I still closed my eyes and made a wish. Snow hopped on the table and lay next to the cake, watching the flickering flames, its tail fluffy and cute. There was a click, and I opened my eyes to see David pointing a camera at me. "Let me take a couple of pictures," he said as the flash went off again. In the camera, my face was lit up brightly in the dim light, with the adorable calico cat and my birthday cake beside me. I really liked the composition. I blew out the candles. David handed me his birthday gift to me, a 4-leaf clover necklace. He said, "I hope you'll always be lucky." Looking back on my life, I wouldn't say I've been blessed by fate. But it seems since last year, when I moved to London and met Wendy's family, my luck started to change. David put the necklace on me. The close distance added a different vibe to just the two of us in the room. He looked down at me, as if he wanted to say something but didn't. "Is there something you haven't told me that you think I can sense?" he suddenly asked. I looked at him puzzled. David chuckled lightly. "It's nothing." He was acting a bit strange. Wendy and John must have found out about my birthday from their son, because they called to wish me well. I was really happy. This winter, David's been to London several times. At first, he said it was to see snow, but later he just stopped mentioning it. He would come to my little cottage, quietly watching me draw. My patience comes from a love of art. Not sure what his comes from. My online presence seems to be growing. Brands are reaching out to collaborate, wanting to buy my designs. When I checked the requests, I noticed the studio where I'm interning was among them. John is currently skiing in Switzerland, and Wendy's updates make it clear they're having a great time. I consulted them about this. John searched my social media for the first time, and was shocked to see some artwork in followers. "Hold on, let me chat with a friend," he said. Not sure who John spoke to, but a few days later, my boss at the studio asked if I'd like to become a designer, not just an intern. Though I'm not finished with school, they promised and were prepared to offer some benefits. Clearly, someone pulled some strings for me. This is one of the few times I've felt what it's like to enjoy privileges. Wendy told me, "Linda, nothing in this world is absolutely fair. But in many cases, we're willing to bend the rules for talent. You deserve this special treatment." I later learned that Wendy and John specifically wore clothes I designed to meet with their friends, and even the big boss of the studio. They made a solid case for me to get this opportunity. The advantage I've received is part recognition of my talent, and part due to the goodwill of this couple. We aren't related, but Wendy says I'm worthy. I got my own office and an assistant. Those designs that were just ideas on paper were becoming real pieces. When graduation came, David showed up with a bouquet. Wendy and John were there too. They joined me for a set of graduation photos. The four of us standing together looked like a little family. "Linda, you're beautiful," Wendy complimented me. "I saw your final project. It's as beautiful as you are." "Congratulations," was all John said as usual. After my graduation ceremony, they left, but David stayed. He seemed to have plenty of time. Every day, he busied himself with caring for 2 gardens and grooming the cat. One day, a model friend dropped me off at home, and David was in the yard, holding the cat and watching me. It was a bit of a peculiar feeling. To be fair, these feelings started earlier. Since I was keeping Snow, I was its mom by default. But one day, I heard David call himself its dad. At that moment, he held the child and silently watched me, as if waiting for me to say something. After a long pause, I said, "My colleague just gave me a ride home." David, petting the cat, said, "My dad's car is just sitting around gathering dust. You could use it to get to work. The key's on that keychain my mom gave you." "No need," I replied. If John knew his son was pitching the car like that, he'd be fuming red. David wandered around my garden, fed Snow a cat snack, and finally asked, "Do you like guys with European faces?" I shook my head. "How about Asian faces?" I shook my head again. "You can't possibly like girls?" David asked, puzzled. I held up my sketchpad, capturing Snow in a drawing. It was being held, and that embrace belonged to David. David sat next to me quietly, waiting as I finished my sketch. He then said, "You keep dodging the topic." He saw right through me, and I couldn't pretend not to know his feelings anymore. "David, but you don't fully understand me," I finally confessed. "He doesn't really know how bad I am, introverted, sensitive, so quiet. It can be tiring to be with someone like that. What's there to like?" "Then you should give me a chance," he said, locking eyes with mine. "I like you. How about you?" Before I could answer, he added, "You can reject me, but I feel like you at least have some feelings for me. I won't give up." Before his confession today, He had done a lot of subtle digging, slowly entering my personal space and intervening with my not-so-healthy eating habits. I allowed it, but right now, I'm still a bit clueless on how to handle it. I'm scared our relationship might just deteriorate over time. But David held my hand, saying, being together and liking each other is enough. Whether we're compatible is something to figure out later. No one's a perfect match from the start. So that day, he became my boyfriend, and even gave me a kiss. In my second summer in London, the neighbor's son became my boyfriend. David visits London once a month, stays for about a week, and then goes back after his associates pressures him to return. Out of nowhere, my account started getting flooded with lots of Chinese comments, or ones that looked like badly translated English. They were from Chinese netizens. They kept frantically asking about my relationship with Clara in the comment section. Clara, that name suddenly popped up in my life again. This overseas account has been running for about 2 years. I gained a lot of followers, especially after my current studio's official account claimed my identity. I've officially become a fashion designer, with real projects, and am even prepping for an international fashion design competition. After finding out, I learned that around a year ago some netizens back in China started clipping my live stream content and posting it to social media over there. And as it got pushed by various algorithms, some sharp-eyed folks noticed something was off. Every piece I create has my signature, an artistic interpretation of the letter L. Some netizens even treat finding this L in each piece like a treasure hunt. Over 2 years ago, the designs I planned to enter competitions into also had my signature. Clara didn't notice back then, nor did any netizens. Not sure who first spotted this strange coincidence, but now it's caught a buzz on Chinese social platforms. Some guessed that the person behind this account was their Clara, but that got debunked quickly since Clara's always been in China. David came by, and he's pretty on top of what's being said about me online. He hugged me first, then asked, "Can you tell me about your family now?" For the first time in a long while, I was finally able to calmly talk about the mess of a life I'd had for over 20 years. David's family definitely wasn't like mine. He listened quietly, then hugged me again. "Do you still have proof of your earlier work?" David gently touched my face. "You seem too soft, letting folks walk all over you without a word. Linda, you're a designer. Your reputation is super important. I think you need to clear your name." He called me a pushover. Then he playfully poked my face with a smile. "Pretty soft, huh?" I shot him a look. He seemed pleased. Those earlier designs have already become part of Clara's brand's first collection. I've seen the pictures and frankly, the finished products aren't quite like my designs. I stopped following it afterward. I thought for a bit, pulled together the screen recordings I had on my computer and my old drafts. I made an update and posted it. Then I updated my homepage with my Chinese name, Linda. Let people think what they want about the truth. But one thing caught me off guard. Somehow, someone in China mentioned the well-kept secret about Clara and my identities. It was written in a third-person perspective, no names mentioned, but it spread like wildfire. Not everyone in their circle is clueless. I mean, who just takes in a teenager without a backstory? They used to think I was an illegitimate child. Little did they know it was actually a dramatic case of swapped lives. I was leaving my studio when I suddenly heard someone call my name. Turning around, I saw a face that seemed like it belonged to another lifetime. Nolan. I don't know much about his current situation, but heard he got married last year. Nolan came over alone, with a look of bewilderment that he may not even understand himself. "You were quite hard to track down," he said. "Comparing the Linda from over 2 years ago to now, there's a world of difference. I'm aware of my changes. Not sure how Nolan feels about me. They initially planned to send me to an average university out of sight, but I ended up in a renowned design school and became a rising designer." "Did you spill Clara's identity?" he asked. "Is that all you came to say?" I was a bit puzzled by his long journey here. He paused and said, "Clara had a heart attack because of this and ended up in the hospital. It's severe. Ken's parents were already dissatisfied with her. Now with her identity out, they're calling off the engagement, and shares plummeted for days. Our parents are furious and resting at home. Is this what you wanted? So he's here seeking justice for Clara. You all hid Clara's identity, which just screams marriage fraud. Breaking it off is only fair, right? Nolan said, "You're part of the family too, we're one." "Not really. My household registry is independent," I quietly replied. "You all are the family." Nolan paused, looking at me. After a while, I heard him say, "We didn't know you applied to a good school. You never mentioned wanting to study abroad. And what difference would that have made? They never believed I'd get in, just thought I was dreaming. You left with no word. We couldn't reach you." I corrected I was kicked out. Nolan choked for a second before speaking again. "You've been MIA for more than 2 years, and we couldn't find you anywhere. I actually overheard Felix telling you, if only we hadn't brought her home." And I calmly responded, "Isn't it better this way, as you wished?" Nolan's face turned pale. He hadn't expected me to have heard them talking. This was after an incident when Clara had a heart attack. I don't even remember why it happened. Clara collapsed, clutching her chest and crying. The whole family was in chaos, rushing her to the hospital, and I got scolded harshly. But Felix's words stuck with me. Nolan didn't object at the time. Nolan finally brought up the design drafts. "If you didn't want to pursue it then, why are you releasing them now?" I replied, "How dare you question why I'm revealing the truth after I got accused of stealing? That's not what I meant." I cut him off again. "Let's not revisit the past. You all believed Clara's nonsense at the time. Of course, you couldn't believe she'd sneak into my room to steal. Even if I showed evidence, you'd say I made it up. Now I share it because I want to. What makes you think you have any authority over me? It was wrong of her, but she's in the hospital now and can't take this kind of stress. What's it to me?" I said nonchalantly. "Linda." Another familiar voice called out just then. David was there to pick me up from work. He casually put his arm around my shoulder and looked at Nolan as if nothing was out of the ordinary. "Nolan, right? I've heard about you. And you are?" "I'm Linda's boyfriend, David." He introduced himself like that. Nolan eyed David, frowning before saying, "You look kind of familiar. Where have I seen you before?" David replied, "Do I? I don't remember." He said, "We're heading home. If there's any fallout from this situation, they deserve it, don't you think? So best to not bother my girlfriend unless it's important." David led me away. Quietly, I asked him, "Was it you who found someone to write that fake daughter swap book?" "David, right? I wrote it myself and got someone to publish it. Pretty good writing. Wendy and John somehow knew about it, and they moved back next door." Wendy looked at me with concern. "Linda, it's okay. We can be your family too. In the past 20-something years of drifting, I always felt alone. But now it feels a bit reassuring." While the couple stayed for a few days, David ended up staying with me. His parents didn't bother with him. Wendy rolled her eyes. "Always knew this kid wasn't right. Never saw him visiting his parents regularly before." David was in a white tank top, lounging on my bean bag, petting the cat. His long fingers teased Snow's whiskers. Annoyed, the cat bit him, just a gesture, and then waddled off, all rounded and stubby-legged. David chuckled, "What a little chubster." The cat would be even more annoyed if it understood. He looked at me before opening his arms. "Want a hug?" The vibe and his easy smile were too tempting. So I sat down with him. David lifted me with one hand, weighing me gently. I asked him, "Am I getting chubby too?" "Nah, you're too light." He said, "I'm different from the cat. You should probably go back, this isn't right." I tried to convince him. Then David started texting on his phone. "What are you doing?" "Texting my mom, telling them to go back to Switzerland. My girlfriend feels awkward." I punched him playfully. The family drama was far from over. Nolan hadn't left London. After he stopped me at the studio again, he asked if I'd go back with him. I thought for a moment and said, "My work is here. Why would I go back with you? Why are you here working when you could be living the good life of a rich girl? If being a rich girl means doing nothing, why did Clara steal my designs for a brand?" My wit was sharper now, but judging by her brand, I bet she hasn't made much in the last 2 years. "Linda." Nolan's patience ran out, but he quickly calmed down. "Come back with me. I'll make Clara apologize. Don't forget, Dad and Mom took care of you for years, and your allowance wasn't small. Mom's not well. She wants to see you." I lifted my eyes and said, "Have you forgotten that when I was in my freshman year, Clara claimed her necklace went missing, and it ended up being found in my room? After that, Mom said she'd cut my allowance, and it was never restored. Nolan clearly remembered. He froze. It was never restored. But he quickly added, "But Clara's necklace was in your room." His voice trailed off, growing softer. Because with the truth about the design drafts exposed after more than 2 years, Clara's integrity took a hit in his mind. If she could steal them and turn it around on me, why couldn't she have framed me for taking her things? Some things don't hold up under scrutiny. Back then, I cried and said I didn't know how the necklace got in my room, and no one believed me. Compared to them, the money spent on the 3 of you was much more than on me. If you have an issue, go ahead and sue me for repayment. They wouldn't sue me. They cared too much about their reputation. Finally, Nolan left and hasn't bothered me since. I stayed busy with my team, focusing on a competition. That period was hectic, but the results were worth it. Winning that award marked my debut in the fashion world. Wendy and John went traveling again, urging me to enjoy my relationship without worries. David leaned lazily against my doorframe as he saw them off, nosy like a neighbor interested in their itinerary. Time passed neither slow nor fast. Another Chinese New Year came around, and David showed up with a festive red puffer jacket, suitcase in tow, to spend it with me. His parents were in Switzerland this year. The self-proclaimed filial son remarked, "I came because I felt you missed me." My parents don't though. It was our very own New Year's Eve. We're chilling on the couch with our cat, watching a recording of the Spring Festival Gala on TV. Because of the time difference, it's already the first day of the Lunar New Year back home. It's actually pretty nice spending the day like this. But there's always something happening with the family back home. One day I got a call. "Linda, don't you want to come home?" It was my mom's voice. Funny enough, I've had 2 sets of parents in my life, but only with Wendy did I ever feel the acceptance parents should have for their kids. I have my own job in life. What would I go back for? Your older brother told me you've been through a lot these years. If you come home, your dad and I can make it up to you, okay? I politely said no need thanks. Are you going to completely cut ties with the family? My usually elegant biological mother sounded choked up. I gave birth to you. Don't you acknowledge our blood relationship? Her words took me back to those 6 years. Sure, I had a comfortable life, but compared to the other 3 kids, it was a big difference. I kept wondering, if they thought I didn't belong in that high-status family, why bring me back? Why not show any tolerance or trust? I mumbled to myself, I wish they hadn't. What did you say? The person on the phone was shocked. Nothing, let's leave it at that. Don't contact me unless necessary. I ended the call. I've cut down on live streaming. Then one night, I got another call from home. This time the voice surprised me. It was Felix. Sounding a bit drunk, he was upset, asking if I wanted to see the family fall apart, saying Clara was broken up with, asking if I was happy now. He had the closest bond with this sister. I only mentioned one thing. Remember the girl you liked when you graduated college? She liked you too. Left you a love letter through Clara. I saw her tear it up. And with that I hung up. After winning a few design competitions, David and I started planning my future. He said I could start my own brand, like his dad did back then. I had no money. Reality check. I do, he said. I figured if I took his money it would change things. But David said, name a few entrepreneurs who truly started from scratch. Go ask my dad. He married my mom because he needed funds to start his business. John has no idea his son is talking behind his back again. Truth is, John insisted on starting his business. His parents feared he'd fail and be a burden, so they made him settle down first. He married his then-girlfriend, Wendy. I signed a contract with David later, with him gaining a 20% stake in my brand as an investor. I decided to return to my country to start my business. Not long after David proposed. After we got the marriage license, the money he invested in me got a bit complicated. I was too busy, so we postponed the wedding to the next year. But David was eager to marry, so we got the license first. I was already 27, and he was 3 years older, hitting the big 30. He joked about how men's market value drops after 30, and asked me to feel sorry for him. When Wendy and John found out about the marriage, They initially chastised us for not discussing it with the family, but later returned to give us wedding gifts. They truly became my parents. Years flashed by, and I still remember meeting Wendy for the first time. She was bright and kind, elegant yet cheerful. She held my hand, urging me to consider my relationship with my family carefully. After all, I was the one calling the shots about inviting them to the wedding, but she worried about gossip. Before I got my head around it, a family reunion was here. It was at a banquet, and David took me there, since he didn't trust me to deal with these people alone, afraid I'd be taken advantage of. So he brought me to learn. At the banquet, I ran into my biological parents and the Nolans. Linda Nolan recognized me first. Hearing my name stopped my parents in their tracks too. It had been over 4 years since I'd seen them. I figured I must have changed a lot in their eyes. Nolan said, "Saw you registered a social media account back home. Guessed you were coming back." After registering, plenty of folks filled the comment section and DMs, gossip curiosity running wild everywhere. My mother looked at me, seemingly finding me unfamiliar. Her tone was different than before. "Linda, it's been a while. Not planning to come home for a visit?" "No, too busy," I replied casually. The father who once slapped me and kicked me out looked uncomfortable, unhappy with my attitude. He seemed to want to say something but didn't. I thought a moment, then introduced David to them. "This is my husband, David. You got married?" They said in unison. My father finally spoke up. "How could you not discuss such a serious thing like marriage with the family?" Uncle David said, smiling. "That's on me. Heard your family only acknowledges one daughter, while mine can't wait to have another girl around. So I quickly took her home. Please understand. He's always been good at throwing shade." But David's status seemed familiar to them. David mainly took over Wendy's family business, chain 5-star hotels. David was a lot wealthier than I thought. The night we got the license, he shared the family safes combination with me. "Linda, they don't want you, but our family cherishes you. Don't be sad, we're a family now." When I returned, Nolan mentioned that mother was sick. I went to see her, and ran into Felix at the door, preparing to walk past him. "Linda, you don't see me?" Felix spoke up. "I see you." I continued inside. Felix, still with his fiery temper, blocked me abruptly. "I have a question for you." "Ask." He froze for a moment, probably surprised by my attitude. "You clearly saw Clara tearing up the letter. Why didn't you tell me?" He looked at me with a hint of resentment. I figured he must have confronted Clara. Realizing the sister he genuinely loved messed up his romance. It's irretrievable now, his crush is already married. "If I had told you, would you have believed me?" I countered. Felix went silent. After a long pause, he opened his mouth but said nothing. I checked on my birth mother lying in bed. She looked really worn out. The maids were whispering that the lady who doted on her daughter had a big fight with Clara. Linda, my mom, opened her eyes and looked at me, sounding tired. "We didn't know you got married, so we didn't prepare a dowry. The card on the table is a little something from me and your dad." "No need," I replied. "When we have the wedding, I'll send you the invitation." This kind of late compensation felt like it lost some of its essence. My mother-in-law said doing some superficial gestures still matters. As I was leaving, I overheard Felix complaining to Nolan. "She won't even call me second brother now." Later, I found out Clara's condition got so bad she had to stay in a nursing home. She used to fake heart problems. Now she doesn't have to. But she's still lucky. The family is willing to pay hefty medical bills to support her. Her ex-fiancé also got married. Felix, always used by her, finally saw some truth behind the facade. Clara ruined his chances because she couldn't tolerate another favored woman in the family. Her brother truly liked that girl, so she couldn't let the marriage happen. As for Nolan, his wife's family was well matched and introduced by elders, so she couldn't stop that. Felix spiraled for a while, even drunkenly demanding from the girl if she ever liked him, begging her to divorce and be with him, only to get punched by her husband. What's missed is missed. She genuinely fell in love and married. The more Felix couldn't let go, the more resentful he became, and his bond with Clara shattered. I learned this from Nolan's wife. Whether intentionally or not, she paid for me to design her dress, so I treated her with patience. Honestly, When I married your brother, I didn't like Clara. Always complaining about feeling unwell, always calling your brother. But I couldn't blame a sister-in-law with heart issues. Eventually, I found out she wasn't even his sister. She smirked. Had I known, I wouldn't have married your brother. Now watching her act so inappropriately with the men in your family is disgusting. Acting like a teenager at 27. I just listened, didn't comment. I planned to have a kid last year, but I'll wait. My sister-in-law sipped her coffee. The doctor said without a heart transplant, she might have 2 years at most. A heart, some never get one in time. Linda, do you still hate them? She asked cautiously, either out of curiosity or on Nolan's behalf. I smiled and shook my head. No hate. It's not important anymore. They aren't important to me now. I have new family. Back home, David was busy in the kitchen with an apron. I hugged him from behind, charging myself. How come you're cooking? David replied, been learning some new dishes for you to try. He said playfully, you know my friends with wives, they keep them happy with their cooking. I can't lose to them. I assured him, you're amazing even without cooking. Our chubby cat Snow, who came back with us, meowed at my feet, seemingly accusing me for not greeting her first. Meow. I picked up the sturdy little chubby girl. David turned and kissed me. Good girl, wait over there. It'll be ready soon. The sunset streamed through the window, the orange-red glow transforming even my cat's coat. A warm, cozy feeling. The end. Bonus, Linda's mother. I never imagined the daughter I carefully nurtured with a heart condition could be someone else's child. My real daughter was maliciously exchanged by her parents. But the innocent child, I couldn't let go of the love I poured into her for 17 years. Away from home, her condition won't allow her much time. So our family kept Clara. For the daughter just returned, I wanted to care for her, but she felt too unfamiliar. I tried to compensate materially. Yet raised elsewhere, she picked up bad traits, lying, stealing, jealousy. I decided to teach her a lesson and halted her allowance. I only planned for 3 months. But somehow I forget. Initially, I didn't worry when Linda ran away. After half a month, I discussed with my husband that if she admitted wrong, we'd bring her back. But her number didn't connect. I thought she was still upset. A month later, no contact made me anxious. Clara suggested maybe Linda was still angry. 3 months in, we finally realized something was off and searched everywhere she could have gone or anyone she might have contacted. Nothing. Our once lost biological daughter was missing again. I wanted to report it, but it would tarnish the family reputation, so I held back. As time went by, no news seemed like good news. I once thought Linda's return caused upheaval at home, but after she left, more issues surfaced. Nolan's wedding plans were underway, forcing me to temporarily set this aside. That delay stretched into 2 years. Then Linda's alleged theft of Clara's designs proved to be false. Nolan grew suspicious, questioning Clara until she couldn't deny it. We finally realized Linda was wrongly accused. Soon, Clara and Linda's true origins spread online. Zhao family wanted to break off the engagement, and Clara had a heart attack. Our once looked down upon biological daughter thrived in her own business alone outside. When I saw her again, I could tell she had changed. She got married, but that guy never came home for me and her dad to meet. I genuinely felt like she had left this family. Later, I heard her sweetly call someone else mom and dad. I couldn't remember the last time she called me that. I truly felt that, in some way, I'd lost my own daughter. Yet, I still remember the pure joy of finding her again after losing her. I deeply regret it, but there's nothing I can do. There's no going back. Epilogue. Nolan. I've always seen myself as a fair elder brother to my siblings. With Clara's health issues, the whole family instinctively favored her a bit more. It was a habit. I forgot that Linda didn't get what she was supposed to have. I later tried to see things from her perspective and realized she, as my sister, seemed to always receive blame. I'm married now and have a good relationship with my wife, but she often gets mad at me because of Clara. Learning that Linda wasn't my biological sister, and that we kicked out our real sister for Clara, made her call us crazy, and nearly led to divorce. But the damage is done. Linda is far more exceptional than we ever imagined. Clara could have stayed at home and been fine. But now her being in a nursing home is best for everyone. Whether or not she gets a heart is up to fate. This family is broken apart, partly because of her, but also because of us. After Linda got married, there's no chance of her coming back. Her husband can give her more than we ever could. Later, Felix told me, shouldn't we have sent Clara away when we brought Linda back? It's similar to what he used to say about not bringing Linda back. But that was probably right. We mixed up our priorities. Dad later discussed giving Linda some shares with me. I didn't mind, but Linda didn't want them, which makes sense. She doesn't need them now. Dad still wrote it in his will though, maybe to ease his conscience, or for some other reason. Epilogue David. When I first met Linda, her eyes held a fragmented galaxy, beautiful yet missing a piece of her soul. Over time, I helped her fill that void, turning her eyes into brilliant stars. She doesn't realize she's the brightest one. The end.